Okay. Hello, good day, everyone. I'm your teacher, Roxana Lamotos, and this will just be a short video. Hopefully, it will be short as I say this on about the formulating the statement of the problem. So, as you can see with the video the video that I sent that I gave you as an assignment earlier are usually it was tailored for non-STEM ng mga students. So, in this kind of video, is it okay that I will, disclaimer lang, I'm not going to be talking in English for a long while. I'm going to be vacillating between English and Bisayan so that mas makasabot mo, and at the same time, it's easier for me to also express my thoughts, okay? So, I made this video because I noticed from the survey that uh, there are still some of you who have difficulty in formulating what the statement of the problem is and even identifying the necessary na mga variables. Okay, so let's go. So what do we need to do first in formulating the statement of the problem? So we need to identify the independent and dependent variables. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So let's recall what variables are. So variables are those that it's a phenomena, a thing, or anything na sa anything sa study that we want measured or mura ganahan nato nga ma-measure. So since for STEM students kay kuan man mo experimental man mo no. So dili lang ni siya limited to kanang mga experimental ng studies but for all. So, it is necessary nga makibawta sa independent and dependent variables because that will dictate unsa ang formulation sa atong statement of the problem and will also dictate kung unsay buhaton nato sa atong research or study. Okay, so let's go. This is just a generic definition of independent and variable nga I took out from Google. Just a quick search would do. So, if you can see here, and independent variables are those that a researcher can manipulate. Okay, whereas the dependent variables are the responses to the effects. Take note of that that phrase right there of independent variables. So by purposefully manipulating the value of an independent variable, one hopes to cause a response in the dependent variable. So we can look at it like this. Let's say let's look at this kind of example first. So let's think about cooking rice. So we know in cooking rice there are several factors involved that can affect the quality nga magkanang sa pagcook na tog rice. And those are, well, number one, the type of rice that we have. So that's whether unsa na siya nga variety nga mo rice imong giluto, jasmine rice ba na or red rice, black rice. There are many different varieties of rice nga nasa market karon. And then also the water to rice ratio. So as in uban ninyo diri nga kay ba mo gamit ang tudlo-tudlo nga method. Pretty sure nga na nga method among gamiton sa amua. So but or was ganahan usa ninyo nga ganahan nga mag 1:1 magtasa-tasa. That's also another factor. Another factor kay cooking time. So especially kanang kuan mag-stove ka dili kuan not necessarily kung rice cooker kay set naman ang cooking time and also the cooking temperature. Also kanang kuan ni siya kung ang gigamit nimo kay stove and not a rice cooker, and also the type of cooking method. So these are factors that could affect the output. So what we have what is kanang the output yung tahay of kanang when we add all these things nga sa rice. So that's texture. There is the texture. It could affect the texture, the taste, the smell, the color of your cooking rice. Now, all of these things nga kaning mga nadiri nga ako gi-point with my laser. These are the factors or the variables nga that could affect your outcome. But what we do manggod in experimental, especially if we want to relate one variable to the output, the effect sa usa ka variable to the output is that we try to i-constant nato ning kuan, i-constant nato ning ubang mga factors. So let's say kani. If you want to focus kintahay on the effect of the water to rice ratio and cooking time. So, ang type of rice, giusa lang nato, gikiponstant na nato. So, Jasmine brand lang atong gamiton throughout so that wala kayo'y inconsistency. Secondly, sorry about that na yung mga aw-aw sa gawas. Cooking temperature atong i-keep constant at 100 degrees Celsius. So mana siya. We could do that if like mag-rice cooker tayo, just so you know. So mana siya. So kada i-keep constant sa ang type of cooking method that we use. And what will be left is the two nga factors nga atong gitutok i-observe. These are our observed na mga factors nga to, or observed na mga variables. So if we want, if we want to just observe the effect of water to rice ratio alone sa imong quality sa imong cooked rice, we can always keep this constant set. And at the very same time, if we want to focus on this part, i-keep sa nato siya constant. Let's say 1:1 siya nato. So that's how you so you could say nga so if ingani man gani ang atong experiment, we have two kabuok independent variables, and these are our dependent na mga variables. Okay. So next, let's talk about kanang growing plants. This is another example nga tong pwede tanawon. Let's say in growing plants, what are the factors nga maka-affect sa output? So of course, ang mag-grow kag plants, the output will always be the characteristics sa imuhang plants nga gi-grow. So you have the height, you have the yield, and the number of leaves, etc. Let's say, oh my God. Stop. Yes. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let's get back to where did I go? Where did I get off? Okay, so we know I've talked about the output. Okay, so of course there are many factors that affect the output, and these are the type of seeds, the amount of sunlight, the amount of water, the amount of fertilizer, and the type of fertilizer. Take note that these are two different factors. Okay, so let's say that we want to focus on the effect on the type of fertilizer. So kanina siya. With this, then we need to keep constant the other na mga factors. So let's keep the type of seeds na constant. Let's look at mung beans lang, and also the amount of sunlight. So we need to keep the amount of sunlight that all the seedlings or the seed should be at least from the same area, and also on the amount of water. So let's keep it constant at 500 ml per day, and also on the amount of fertilizer, 50 grams per week. So ang bilan na jud ani kay ang type of fertilizer, which its effect ng kung i-focus mo dyan ang iyang i-observe will be more sound sa output, di ba? Because all the other factors ginahimo naman siyang constant. Okay, sige. So this is our sole na independent na variable, while the rest of the output is our dependent na mga variables. So if we could use an analogy for this, kung unsa ng independent na mga na mga variables, you could look at it as if they were kanang functions. Okay, I'm pretty sure nakaagi na mo tanan sa inyong Gen Math, and you all know unsa na siya nga function. So the x or kanang the x nga gipangita nato sa kanang sa math, kay mo na siya ang atuang independent na variable, and the function of x, or the value nga after na makuha na to kay mo na siya ang dependent na variable. So let's look at this. So your dependent variable is a function of your independent na variable. from the word itself, mo depend siya. Okay? So asa siya mo depend si independent ni independent. So now, okay, I hope nga makakita na mo siya sa analogy. So let's look at the previous na mga examples nga itong gitara. From the first example, nga we look at the effect of the we look at nga from the first example, we look at the water to rice nga ratio and its effect the qualities of your rice. So si X, water to rice ratio, Fx are the qualities of your cooked rice. Same with cooking time. So si X is cooking time and si Fx ng qualities of your rice. These are under the first mga example, okay? Katong cooking of rice. And then the third one kay katong sa planting of kanang growing of seeds rather, kay si X is the type of fertilizer that we have. And the result or the Y ng mga values or the Fx is the growth characteristics of your seedlings and plants. So I hope na makakita mo sa analogy. Okay. So when you are trying to determine the effective, so let's say there are some of you nga murag based on a survey kay murag there is a correct and not correct way of kind of stating things, and based lang sa survey, so I noticed na there are those na mga kanakuan mga dili kayo correct na mga statements kung pangutan-on mo kung unsa ang independent o dependent ng mga variable. Okay, so let's try to let's address that karon. So let's say nga you have this example when you are trying to determine kaning nga case that when you're trying to determine the effectivity of chili and tomato as an insecticide. Okay. So, pangutanan mo, what are the independent variables and dependent variables sa imuhang kanang kuan sa ani nga case? So, sa uban, they would state nga the chili and tomato are the independent nga variables. And the dependent variables is the mortality rate of insects. How the ratio of how many insects died over ang total insects na sprayed. So this is not entirely correct, especially on this part. Kay dapat ni siya complete. You cannot, especially nga murag ang umayon kay chili and tomato, like unsay nga na what part man sa chili and tomato, like is it unsa magi-vary nimo ana? It's supposed to be if ever man gani nga nag-vary ka sa amount, so ang relative nga amount between chili and tomato, so you place there sa independent variable nga the ratios of chili and tomato. So it means nga umay ratios, it means nga mura ang ilang relative nga amount with each other. So like there is the chili, there there 2 parts chili, 1 part tomato, 1 part chili. Murag man sa imuhang si group 1, group 2, group 3. Kung ipadayon ang experiment. And then the dependent variable is of course the mortality rate of insects. Okay, this is how you are going to how you're going to determine the effectivity niya as an insecticide. Kay, di ba, the purpose of an insecticide is to kill insects or to to kill as many insects nga sa imuhang amount nga spray. So ano siya. So let's look at another example. Let's say when you are trying to determine the effect of varying drying time of leaves to the acceptability of tea produced. So usually magama ka ganang tea, di ba? Ipabuwad if namay experience and naka-experience sa magbagamag tea, ibuwad na nimo ng mga leaves, you sun dry it anya kung ang i-vary nimo kay imuhang drying time, you don't say nga ang independent variables kay ang tea, nor even if like yung i-determine nimo sa imuhang study kay sa acceptability of tea, ang correct na kompleto jud na siya dapat ang imong pag-state sa imong mga variables. Independent variable. What is the independent variable? The drying time of tea leaves. The drying time of tea leaves, not tea. So, uwi na drying time, ang imong mag-vary ka in drying time, so you have 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Time good. Imong drying time man ang imong gi-differ, man ang gi-change so that ang dependent variable kay siya mo kuan siya if tanawon ba nimo if like mo effect ba siya mo effect ba ni siya nga part ani. Okay? Now, third example. When you're trying to determine the effect of introducing malunggay leaves to the bowel performance of mice. So, not correct. Malunggay, dependent variable, mice. I know nga more kuan siya, like kapoy siya kayo bitaw ubag state mo o kanang complete nga sentence when it comes to this or more taas-taas siya kayo. So, you would rather just place a one word na lang for independent variable, nga dependent na variable. Pero, this is this is misleading manggod kung i-remain na niyo siya as is like one word na siya like in malunggay is a noun but what part man sa malunggay. Okay, ang correct nga state ani kumpletuhon jud nimo. So ang independent variable nimo from the statement alone determining the effect of introducing malunggay leaves. Imong introduce ang malunggay leaves sa diet sa mice. So you have two groups, mice nga naay malunggay leaves silang diet o niya mice nga wala. So ang imong independent variable sa ni ang imuhang givari ani kay ang type of diet. So with malunggay, without without the malunggay, or you could state it differently ang independent variable, the inclusion of malunggay in rodent diet. So pwede rasad na. As long as kanakon siya clear siya, you don't make it vague because this is going to complicate things in a further sa imong study. Dependent variable. So, as since man, we are trying to look at the bowel performance of mice, we could, pwede ka butanaw sa, there are sa the following na mga, pwede nimo tanawon. So, characteristics sa tae or sa feces, hardness, color, smell. Pwede na siya i-observe. Ang bowel movement characteristics of mice, like how often they poo, how much poo they produce, etc. And also the overall health of mice. So, okay. So these are you could include all of these, of course, but you could also if like you think it's going to be it's going to be murag maglisod na kasi mo study kung i-appeal tanan, you can just pili lang pero murag ang nice kung nga study gyud kung ma-include ni siya tanan. Though dili siya necessary but nice kung ma-include siya tanan. So, okay. Now let's go to writing the statement of the problem. So the statement of the problem involves two parts. If you watch the video that I sent earlier prior this, kay makarelate mo. But as I said, that video was tailored for kanang mga non-STEM students nga or kanang for those students na murag limited na lang ilang study to survey na mga researches. Okay? So, we're set aside man. So, ano siya. So the statement of the problem, it usually involves two parts, the general or main objective and the specific na mga objectives. Okay. So from the general or main objective, this statement provides the focus of research. And usually, it is in terms of a declarative nga form or like it's in terms of a statement form siya. But should also include the following. So purpose of the study, respondents, environment, general address, time frame, and output. So but dili na necessary nga i-include ni siya tanan. Like, of course, since experimental na ta, I'm pretty sure wala na ning respondents. Anya, wala na kay kaayo details sa respondents, but you can always include the environment, time frame, and output. Okay, as we'll see later. I will give a lot of examples about ani. So, aside from that, kay the general or main objective kay pwede siya ma-state as the following. So depende na siya sa unsa nga depende na siya sa school. Usually naman ay school factor, but usually it starts the general or main objective starts along these types of statements. So the main objective of the study is to this research will assess blah blah blah. This research will evaluate blah blah blah. So ano siya. So when you're trying to, let's say when you're sa previous example, when you're trying to determine the effectivity of chili and tomato as natural insecticide, what do you think should be the general objective, or how should the general objectives be stated. So we have here the independent variables, kilid independent. If I were the one nga magamag kanang statement sa general objective for this for this topic, research topic, I would say the main objective of the study is to determine the effectivity of chili and tomato as natural alternative insecticide. So you have there the purpose, di ba? The purpose is to determine the effectivity of chili and tomato as natural alternative insecticide. You don't need to add the other na mga inclusions such as respondents, especially since walay kung kanang for an experimental study, usually walay respondents unless a part na sa imuhang methods nga mag-give out sa survey. So aside from that, kay ang environment and general address usually it's for for kanang kung asa nimo ni siya gi perform ni siya nga study, kung kanang ba siya specific ba siya or significant ba ang impact sa mga environment. Like for example, sa mga survey na mga studies, important man nga makabaw sila asa gikan ang mga respondents sa study. So include ang environment and general address if nakakita mo dito sa video. But here, let's make it let's make it simple lang nga. Leave it out unless important kay siya. Okay? So second example, when you're trying to assess the effect of introducing malunggay leaves to the bowel performance of mice. So we have here the independent variables. And this is how I would state the general objective. So this research will assess the effect of the inclusion of malunggay leaves in mice diet to the bowel performance and characteristics of mice. So I hope na siya nakahatag mo idea on how to go about the general objective. Now let's go to the specific second part, which is the specific objectives. So these specific objectives are statements that will usually address the realization of the research objective. So it's usually expressed in terms of interrogative form, in terms of questions. So in questions yung form, and should include the following. So profile of the respondent, if applicable, assessment of the dependent variable, and so on and so forth. So let's look at the past two examples again. And let's try to make, I'm going to show examples on how to make specific objectives. Okay, so parts SOP. So when first example, at the previous example, when you're trying to determine the effectivity of chili and tomatoes insecticide. Again, the independent and dependent variables are there. And let's try to write down the specific objectives. So one, assessment of the independent mga variable. I-skip na ko to siya because wala naman assuming na wala respondents ani. Unless mangutana ka, okay? Nakay nakay parts sa imong study where you include the perception of the respondents on this type of on the topic. So the effectivity of chili and tomato as insecticide. But assuming na wala, so mo start ka ani. So what are the types of insecticide used in the study? Since naman sa independent variables. And two, what are the ratios of chili and tomatoes observed in the study? So, of course, these two sa pag-assess of independent ng mga variables, kay set na siya, ikaw may mag-set since you're the researcher and you're the experimenter. Okay? So, ma-answer na din sila. So, assessment of the independent variable. 3, what is the mortality rate of insects? Or how many insects died over the total insects sprayed? So, but you can just keep it like this for simplification purposes. And then, again, 4 is the hypothesis nga testing. Is there a significant difference in the mortality rate between commercial insecticide with that of the natural insecticide? since mama ni siya ang kuan, is there a significant difference on the mortality rate? So sa hypothesis testing, you're actually looking for a relationship ni na kanakuan, or that we or in this case, number 4, which one is better? You're asking which one is better, sa commercial insecticide or kaning natural insecticide nga imong gi-propose mo study. So kaning mga objective kailangan ni siya kanina mga questions sa sa kuan, sa specific ng objectives or mga objectives in general kailangan ni siya ma-answer sa mo study. And 5, which among the different ratios is the most effective as natural insecticide? So this is just pertaining to the natural na insecticide, since of course ang ratio sa imong kuan natural insecticide kay mama nang vary. And lastly, the output of our study. So based on kanang it would also be nice i-include sa inyong specific objectives ang kuan output sa inyong study. So kanang kuan ba murag part na siya sa imuhang ang answer ani kay mahimo siyang part sa imong recommendation and conclusion. So based on the findings of the study, what do you recommend as a researcher to improve the product or output, which is using chili and tomato as an alternative natural insecticide? Okay. So, okay. How about this one? This example, when you're trying to determine the effect of introducing malunggay leaves to the bowel performance of mice. 1. So let's try to assess the independent variable. What type of diets are being observed in the study? So the type of diet, kay appeal man siya sa maman ang independent variable. So mana siya. So the kanang ma-answer ni siya more ito, of course, the diet with the malunggay or without the inclusion of malunggay. Second is assessment of the dependent variable. So what are the effects of the inclusion of malunggay on the, you can actually read that the feces characteristics of mice, the bowel movement characteristics of mice, and the overall health of mice. So these three, umabot na siya sa imuhang results and discussion section sa imuhang paper, these three should be reflected dito. Ma-answer ni siya. Kay apil man sa imuhang objectives, specific na objectives. Okay? So, sa hypothesis ng testing, this kind of, as we said earlier, kay mo siya ang pag-determine if there is a significant difference or if there is a correlation or a relationship between the two variables. So, mani siya. So 3, is there a significant difference between the fecal characteristics of mice fed with malunggay niya without malunggay? So kani siya, since you're just comparing two groups with malunggay and without malunggay, maabot na ani ang imuhang pag-test for significant difference. Na diba it asks for a significant difference. Umabot na sa results and discussion, you are going to the way that you are going to answer this is that you're going to prove if there is a significant difference by showing your results sa statistical treatment. So since duha man ni siya kabuok with malunggay and without malunggay, you're going to use t-test. The same way nga previously, magamit ka po ka sa other types of statistical na treatment. Okay? So, as I said, is there a significant difference between bowel movement characteristics and then the overall health of mice? So, man siya. And then, lastly, sa outputs of our study. So, these are what you're going to propose or can include sa imong recommendations and conclusions. So based on the findings of the study, is the inclusion of malunggay in rodent diets recommended? If not, what do you recommend as a researcher in further studies? Okay, I know na more you can be able to state these differently o mag-write na ka sa imuhang SOP. Do not copy these or take my words as as law or as is. Okay, there are still many other ways nga to improve these na mga sa writing sa inyong SOP. For one, like you could just you do not use you or you do not use the second nga person sa imuhang pag-write og SOP as much as possible, it should be in third nga person. Instead of this, what do you recommend as the researcher in further studies? Pwede nimo ibutang dira nga kuan as ang kuan what are the recommendations um based on the findings of the study in the future ng mga studies. So like you don't say you don't say I. So okay, like since this is a research one, this is an objective na study. Okay. Okay, na late na siya. So, okay, how does it look like di on other studies kaning SOP? You're going to be surprised nga ang other na mga studies hindi siya pareha sa ato. Okay, let's take a look. Yes, saan siya pag-sit? Okay, sige. Okay, let's try to look at this let's try to look at this example. So, this study was published in the International Journal of Sustainable Built Environment, SAVIR. So it's about the public acceptance of biofuels in the transport sector in Finland. So ang gibuhat nila kay I'm pretty sure all of us are aware of the diba, of the movement of mga scientists nga mo prefer to renewable na mga energy sources, and especially the use of biofuels para ma-save ang environment, to prevent climate change and all that. And some people niya ang i-assess ani ang public acceptance. So this study actually focuses on the acceptance sa mga people sa Finland, ang ilang pagtanaw nila on biofuels. So let's look at the let's look at the usually the general objective of the study ra ang include, okay? I-include nila sa study. They don't include yun like di pa sa tuwa nga na separate nga section for the statement of the problem. They usually include the general objectives sa last part sa ilahang introduction or their chapter 1. So, na tanaw ni right before nga murag ni shift na siya to theoretical discussions. We have here in highlighted the aim of the study. So this here is the general objective of the study. Okay, the aim of the study is to have an overview of what the potential customers of biofuels think about its sustainability and what would motivate them to change their consumer behavior and in favor of biofuels. So I'm gonna probably going to send this as sample na research paper. So this is a survey questionnaire nga based na study. Okay. Oh shit. Okay, kahit lang ha. Pause.